Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the best Arena Football 1 show this side of the internet. I'm your host, Adam Stowe. You're on the world of football, and sitting in with me is my father, Randy Snow. Dad, how are you doing as we recap Week 14 of Arena Football 1 action, the end of the regular season? We are on the cusp of the playoffs. We know the teams. We had all the drama. How was it watching it? I'm talking with my hands a lot. We're Italian. It's fine.
Oh, you're going to let me talk? I thought you were going to babble for another 5 minutes. No,
I was thinking about it.
I can't believe that the regular season is over with already. It seems like this season has flown by. Been some great games, been some not so great games, but for the most part, it's been a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to the playoffs. A little disappointed with one team not being there, my team, but I got a new team for the playoffs, so
Clearly,
we'll
man,
talk
you
about
sell
that.
out real quick, real fast there, my friend. But no,
I'm
a
I'm
lot of
fickle.
people, yeah, a lot of people, there's a lot of talk out there that, oh, this league's not going to make it to the final week. How many teams are going to drop off? Look, when push came to shove, the 8 teams that started the regular season after what happened with Orlando, we won't get into that mess. We covered that, been there, done that. Here we are, end of the year. 8 teams played with maybe 1 or 2 games just being shuffled about a little bit. Other than that, this league's delivered. Here
Yep.
we are, guys. We're in the final week of the season. We have a playoff coming up. Yeah, they tweaked the playoff format. I think it was for the better. We'll get into all of
Yes.
that here.
Yes, absolutely.
But before we talk about this slate of games, guys, I'm very excited. As you could tell, the energy's really high today. Talking AF1 football. Before we talk about the Week 14 slate of games, I would like to remind you all to please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really does help us out. It's been a lot of fun engaging with a lot of arena fans from the different fan bases. People criticizing us, saying like, hey, why'd you call last week's Salina game of controversy? It wasn't really a controversy, and explaining it to us, hey, we appreciate y'all. Any corrections, we appreciate. We're just here to talk about a game we love, and that's arena football. And also, guys, if you want to keep that conversation going, follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. We love talking and communicating with other football fans out there. And we hope you like talking to us. That's why you keep coming back and watching our dumb, ugly mugs every week talking AF1 football. And Dad, let's do just that. Are you ready to kick off talking about this week of games?
Yes, I am. Let's do it.
All right, guys, let's do this. The Week 14 slate started with a Saturday night matchup between the Nashville Cats. I got it represented on my hat. You got it represented on your shirt. The Nashville Cats just dominating the Corpus Christi Tritons 80-18. Dad, woof.
I I thought this would be
How'd you
a
feel?
little closer. I thought this
I
would be a
did
little
too.
closer game, but I assumed that Nashville would win this game. But I really thought Corpus Christi would give them a run. Last game of the season, pull out all the stops. No, it didn't turn out this way. The
It
Cats
was really
Cats
rough.
the Cats were up 16-0 after the first quarter. It was 36-6 at halftime. 57-6 after the third quarter. Corpus Christi did score 12 points in the fourth quarter, but not enough for that 80-18 final score. The Tritons now finished the season on a 7-game losing streak after being 3-0 to start the season. We thought this team was going to really ball out this year, and wow, they did for 3 games, and that was about it. They played some good games, though.
They played some good games, and they, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, they kind of came back to life a little bit. They got competitive against this Cats team. That's
Yes.
what made me think, hey, maybe they'll give the Cats a run for their money and shake up the playoffs a little bit. But Nashville was just too much for them in that Clarksville game. That's right. This game was played in Clarksville, not in Nashville at their normal arena. And some other notes from this game. Look, I turned this game on. I had a buddy over. We're watching the game. Eli Gold on the call again. Guys, absolutely
Love Eli
phenomenal.
Gold.
AF1, find a way to get Eli Gold to call your championship game. I don't know how you have to do it. Just get it done. Get it done. I don't care if it's in Albany. You get Eli Gold to do it. I'm sorry to those guys, gods, whoever. I'm sorry. Eli Gold is the voice of the Arena Football 1, and you got to get him to do the championship game. I'm just saying.
Yep.
That is
I
like
agree.
bare minimum requirement. But also during this game, something I don't know if it was talked about. Did you see the helmets for the Cats that they wore during this game?
No, I didn't.
So it was the normal black helmets, but they had a red, white, and blue stripe down the middle, which I thought was interesting. But then they also had, it looked like different military seals, like going up the helmet. I didn't
I did
hear.
not catch that.
I didn't hear an explanation for this. If somebody from Nashville could fill us in, that'd be great. I'm curious. I didn't see it during the broadcast, and admittedly, because this game ended up being a blowout, I kind of flipped it over. We had a lot of football that night too, between
Yes, it was.
three AF1 games. The UFL, obviously, because we're Michigan Panthers fans, we were watching the championship game. I was flipping back and forth between so much that when this game became a blowout, and I was just like, man, like Nashville seems like they got this under control. Hopped over to the next game, which we'll talk about, which was also a little out of control. But let's highlight some players real quick, and then we'll move on. Uh, Tyler Culk, a quarterback for the Cats, another stellar game. 8 of 16, completed 8 passes, and he threw 4 touchdowns. So half of his completions were touchdown passes. He also rushed 2 times for 18 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Niger Jackson had 1 catch for 44 yards and a touchdown. He also had 3 rushes for 39 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver DJ Thorpe had 2 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed 4 times for 7 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Antoine Grant for the Cats, 3 catches, 37 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then how about defensive back Amos Coleman III? He had a 50-yard kick return for a touchdown during this game as well. So the Cats were just scoring pretty much every which way. And then for Corpus Christi, Fred Payton Jr., 8 of 22, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. He also rushed the ball 7 times for 32 yards and a touchdown. And wide receiver Richie Anderson for the Tritons, 4 catches, 51 yards. He caught a pair of touchdown catches. And I would also like to point out during this game that the 62-point margin of victory for the Cats was the 4th biggest margin of victory this season. So a heck of a win for them. And like you mentioned, the 7th straight loss for Corpus Christi.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else about this game?
No, the Corpus Christi season, just took a nosedive. Like I said, they played some good games. They came close to winning some games. They played well, especially towards the end of the season, but not in this game. And yeah, they're done. They're done for the year.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the fate of this franchise holds going forward. You hate to speculate, and I'm not going to begin to speculate, but we'll see what happens in the offseason with this team. All right, we're going to move on to the second game of the weekend, which saw the undefeated Albany Firebirds keep that record perfect as they embarrassed the Washington Wolfpack and me 98-12 for a couple reasons we're going to get into with this Firebirds game, Dad, because I said famously last week that the Wolfpack would not score more than 3 points. No. I said, what's the over-under? I'm going to set it at 4, and I took the under. Well, as soon as they scored that touchdown in the first quarter, immediately, Outlaws owner Steven Titus messaged me. I'm not kidding. Like, as soon as that play happened, my phone dings, and it's Steven Titus saying the over pays. And, I got to bite that one. And then you said that they would score more than a touchdown during this game.
I said they would score at least 1 touchdown. They scored
and
2.
You were right. And you were right. You ended up being right. I thought maybe Albany would be able to hang 100 points, and they were 2 points short. Dang it. So I was almost right. So, again, wrong in both accounts. Yeah. Look, Albany opened up this game. They were up 16-0, and I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be a typical game. Then all of a sudden, that first touchdown happens for Washington, and it's like, uh-oh. Are the Wolfpack going to play spoiler? And then the Wolfpack proceeded to score those 12 points unanswered. And then it was 16-12 at the start of I think that second touchdown was the first play of the second quarter. And you're like, uh-oh, is Washington going to make this a game? No, they weren't. Because after that, it was just an avalanche of scoring for the Firebirds. At halftime, it was 52-12 in favor of Albany. They just were relentless during this game. And Washington just completely shut out in the second half.
Yeah.
Like and if you really want to get down to it, they were pretty much shut out for 3 quarters because their first score or their last score was at the start of the second quarter.
Right.
And then after that, it was nothing. So I also want to mention the 86-point victory for the Albany Firebirds is the second biggest margin of the season in the league. So there you have that. Anything did you catch from this game that you have thoughts on?
No, I just, like you said, 52-12 at halftime, and got shut out in the second half. Washington did, just awful. Just an awful showing by Washington in this game.
Yeah. So here's some stats real quick, guys. Let's talk about the Wolfpack first. Kobe Gaston, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. 13 of 33 for 103 yards, a touchdown and a pair of interceptions, but he did have 5 rushes for 6 yards and a touchdown. A wide receiver, Akil Greer, had 4 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. That was a really nice touchdown catch, by the way, that Greer made there in the first. I believe that was the first quarter touchdown. Really nice there. He was like all alone in the end zone, caught it, and that's what made me throw my hands up. That's what made me, get called out by Steven Titus. So, good job to Greer on that touchdown catch. And then for the Firebirds, look, they were able to have Sam Castronova go 6 for 8, 122 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he had a pick. He also had 1 rush for a yard for a touchdown. Backup quarterback Robert McCoy Jr. got some action during this game. He went 7 of 9 for 98 yards, and he threw 4 touchdown passes during this game. And the wide receiver Dwayne Brown, a guy who I honestly think, and Firebirds Nation, come at me, Dwayne Brown might have to be in the serious discussion for MVP. I'm just saying, no, nothing against Sam Castronova, but Dwayne Brown had himself a year. He had 4 catches, 89 yards, 3 touchdown catches during this game. Even his partner, Darian Townsend, the other receiver there, 3 catches, 77 yards, also 3 touchdown catches. So they were just lighting it up there in Albany, as we usually expect them to do. And, what more can you say about this team? 10-0 in the regular season, one of the first teams, if not the first team in arena football overall to go into the postseason, I think, undefeated. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I've got nothing to add to this game. It's just It is what it is.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk about their playoff matchup here in a bit. But guys, we're going to take this time to let you guys know that we also do a weekly podcast where we talk about a lot of stuff happening in the world of football. Hence the name. It's called This Week in the World of Football. We have episode number 398 coming up. Deb, what can they expect on that show?
Oh, well, the DC Defenders are your 2025 UFL champions. The playoff field is set in the AF1. And later on tonight, we'll talk about this tomorrow, a champion will be crowned in the National Arena League. So those are some of the stories we'll be talking about on our audio podcast tomorrow.
Yep, that's for sure, guys. Be sure to check out episode 398 of This Week in the World of Football, available wherever good podcasts can be found, or right here on YouTube. It's just the audio version, so don't expect to see these two lovely mugs on that one. But also, guys, we'd also like to remind you that we do have our 400th podcast just a couple weeks away on Canada Day, July 1st, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be doing a live stream across our social media platforms here on YouTube as well, where it'll be like our normal podcast show, but with some special live guests. We're probably going to be talking that AF1 championship game because that's going to happen the weekend before that live stream. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff in the football world. So be sure to check that out, guys. Again, July 1st, 6 p.m. Eastern, live stream on YouTube and wherever our social media platforms are. So check that out. And we'll this week we'll have a post with the guests that'll be on there. I keep saying it. We're going to put that up officially this week because they have said yes. I promise there is actual guests.
Yes.
All right. Now let's move in. This is the final game that happened on Saturday. Those first 2 games were blowouts. These last 2 games, there's a lot to talk about here with both of these games. Because Saturday night, this game was between the Oregon Lightning and the Billings Outlaws. This game was up in up in Redmond, Oregon, where both these teams are fighting for their playoff lives. A lot on the line, and a lot would depend on the following game on Sunday. But here, this was a very lively game, and this eventually saw the Billings Outlaws keep their playoff hopes alive, edging out the Oregon Lightning 40-38. This game didn't start off great for the Outlaws, though. It was 14-0 Oregon in that first quarter, and I'm sure all you Outlaws fans out there, including you, Randy, were just like, what is happening? We didn't expect this. And this is what I called last week, where I said, the week before or the 2 weeks ago when these two teams met, I expected a really hard fought. This was the type of game I was expecting, but it was a Billings blowout. And then when I expected Billings to blow them out this week, what do you know? They made it a game. So every time I go one way, the game goes the other direction. So luckily we got a really good game here.
Yeah.
You checked it out. This is your Outlaws team. What do you got?
Well, like you said, the Lightning were up 16-0, but the Billings had a 24.
But
Oh, I thought it was 16. Anyway, but Billings had a 24-20 lead at halftime. So They got the momentum going into halftime. They outscored Oregon 12-9 in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, I skipped over the third quarter.
I was gonna say,
The score at the end of the third quarter was 31-24 in favor of Billings, and after that, they outscored the Lightning 12-9 in the fourth quarter.
other way around. The Lightning scored 12 points in the fourth quarter. The Outlaws only scored 9.
Okay, I must have
So
written it down wrong.
yeah, it's all good.
Saturday was a long day for me. I went to a
Oh, I'm
Tigers
sure.
game that day, and oh
Between
my
that,
gosh,
3 arena games, a UFL
yeah,
championship, Randy, you had
yeah,
a lot on
and
your plate.
CFL games
It's
that oh
fine.
my god,
I
oh
told
all over
Stephen
the place.
Titus that you were up past your bedtime. You were probably asleep while him and I were texting during this game because yeah, if you all
I
didn't know,
might have
Stephen
been
Titus wasn't at the game, but I was chit chatting with Stephen Titus during this game. He was on pins and needles for this one, and obviously he was happy at the end of the day that his team got the victory.
right.
But Billings, it was rough. I thought this would not be as close as it ended up being, but good for Oregon. They showed some fight. Dalton Cole looked really good in this game. The Lightning quarterback was 15-32 for 182 yards. He threw for 5 touchdown passes during this game. He even had 6 rushes for 13 yards and a touchdown. And then wide receiver Chris Lewis for the Lightning also had himself a day. Let's give him some love. 8 catches, 137 yards, 4 touchdowns for him. Heck of a game. For the Outlaws, how about Malik Henry? He was 16-26 for 147 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushes for 4 yards. And then fullback Kevin Voiles Jr. had 13 rushes for 47 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Outlaws. And wide receiver Darius Prince, 6 catches, 63 yards, but no touchdowns during this game. A little surprised Darius Prince couldn't find his way in the end zone in this one. But this was a lot tighter of a game than I expected. But Oregon gave them a run for their money. And, that eliminated Oregon from the playoffs. And this Oregon team, we'll see what happens with this franchise going forward. But they got a lot of promise there. If they can bring some of these pieces back and add some more guys, Oregon could be somebody to reckon with next year. And I don't know about you watching this game, the arena. I don't know what they've done differently since the first game we watched earlier in the year against Billings. It did seem like they added some cement canisters around to keep stuff in place. And I don't know for certain. Maybe somebody can correct me. It looks like maybe even the scoreboard got moved because it seemed like the kicks were flowing a lot better back and forth than at the start of the year. Maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. It just looked like it. Watching the game, I was just surprised to see how many kicks were actually, going through the air without hitting a scoreboard. Because I felt like that first game against Billings this year happened often.
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect from this game. I thought it was going to be close because, Oregon has been playing really well and Billings, had been struggling up until the last couple of weeks. So I thought this was going to be a real litmus test for Billings. And Oregon made them work for it. Billings got the win and I wasn't sure if they were going to get the win or not, but Oregon took them right to the end. And it was an exciting finish to the game. So I was so glad, and at this point, Billings had their playoff hopes alive, but it all came down to the next game as to whether
Yeah.
they would get in or not. Um, but at least I was happy that night that my Billings Outlaws were uh, at least still alive for another day, and then I was totally depressed the next day.
Yeah, so let's talk about. So they needed in the next game, they needed a certain team to win, and they needed another team to lose. But Billings ending the season at 500 now. They ended the season at 6-6. So
Right.
look, they had a rough start to the year. They had a lot of player turnover, and it just you hate to see it at the end of the year. I told Mr. Titus, I was like, it does stink to see the end of your season come down to the fate of another game.
Yeah.
It really does stink.
Yeah.
But he seemed to be in high spirits about it. He had no qualms about it. He even acknowledged, like, hey, even though he might have screwed himself by having the playoff format change, like he knew it was best for the league, and I think that was really cool when him and I were talking. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and let's talk about this next game because this was pretty much going to be the game of the week until this next game happened. The final game of the weekend, everybody saw the Salina Liberty punch their ticket to the AF1 playoffs by defeating the Southwest Kansas Storm 53-52. This game, top 3 game of the year now. I'm just going to go out and say it. Like Salina has somehow found themselves in a spot where they have probably played 3 of the best games that we've watched all season long. A team that started 0-4 to start the year. A team that we were like, they're done. Dunzo, we don't have to talk about them. You can count them out. Well, we'd all have been wrong because they found a way to win. What is it? They won 6 of their last 7 games to find themselves at 6-5. They beat their interstate rival for the second straight week in a row. And all 3 of these games between the Storm and Liberty have been within 2 points of each other. Remember that game where they lost 22-0? And obviously last week they won 65-63. And here they are, third matchup. They win by a single point. And a lead they didn't grab until the fourth quarter. What were your thoughts watching this game? I know as you were rooting for the Storm so that your Outlaws could make it to the playoffs.
Right.
But what were your thoughts watching this game?
Yeah, well, I made some notes on my phone. Southwest Kansas was up 52-36 after 3 quarters. So the fourth quarter was really phenomenal. It didn't really matter what happened in the first 3 because the fourth quarter was something else. Salina, Southwest Kansas was up 52-50 with 4 minutes and 53 seconds left in the game. Salina had a pick interception off the wall in the end zone with a minute 56 remaining. You saw that play?
I did. I was on the edge of my seat when that happened. I think I sat up like, what? Yeah. Like, this is great. It was off the wall. Shout out to our buddy Trey. He can use that clip. I don't care.
Yeah, it bounced off the defender and the receiver, and it hit the wall, and a defender bounced up a little bit, and he just grabbed it. Interception.
Heads up play.
Yeah.
Heads up play that was awesome. Like, it was just sitting there on the top of the board for a second, and he just scooped it up. That was awesome.
And then a fourth down pass was incomplete by Salina with 43 seconds left. Southwest Kansas had an incomplete pass on their possession on a fourth down with 26 seconds left. And then they ran a few plays, and that's when Bailey Hale came in and kicked a 25-yard field goal with 5 seconds left. And it was good, giving them a 53-52 lead with 1 second left on the clock. And it was the first lead of the game for Salina. That was their first lead of the game. And Southwest Kansas, Southwest Kansas was shut out in the fourth quarter. They kicked off and they tried to return it. They tried the old lateral back, and it got picked off there, and just they ran out the clock. And oh my gosh, what an ending! I was so depressed. I was so depressed for my Outlaws, but congratulations, Salina. We thought they had the chance to do it, but for most of the game, I thought, Salina's going to lose this game. Oh, they're down by 20 points. Oh, they're down by 15 points. There's no way, and I was wrong. They came back.
Not so fast, my friend. Salina has been so much fun to watch the last several weeks. Ever since that Albany game where they gave them a run for their money, this has been the team to watch, pretty much. I just also want to mention there at the end of the game, they almost blew it. Southwest Kansas kind of blew it, but both these teams were like trying to give this game away at the end. I thought it was a mistake. There was like 40 or 50 seconds left, and Salina was going for a fourth down play. I can't remember if it was at their 20-yard line or if it was at the Storm's 20-yard line. It was near midfield. And I was like, this is where you kick a field goal. Kick the field goal. You got a few seconds. Even if you miss it, you're hopefully you could get a ricochet off the net, or you're pinning them down back that way, as long as you don't let them return it. But they went for it on fourth down, which has been one of my big issues with teams this year, is all this going for it on fourth down when it's like, just kick a field goal. Granted, a lot of these teams don't have, competent, good kickers, but Hale's been decent.
Yes.
So I was shocked that they didn't kick the field goal in that instance to try to get the lead at some point. And their defense at that point, playing lights out. Clearly they held the Storm scoreless in that fourth quarter. So that upset me. I was like, why are you going for it on fourth down? Just kick the field goal. And they gave the Storm the ball back. Then there's the Storm. The Storm couldn't do anything with it. So the Storm equally is like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like, punch it in. Like they like ran a couple plays. It was just really not so good play calling, I think, on their part to just run out that clock. That's all they had to do.
Yeah.
You could have made Salina waste their timeouts. All you needed to do was get down and get a first down, and they couldn't even manage that. They're throwing some risky passes. Salina's defenders were ready for them, and then they eventually gave Salina the ball back, and Salina just had to march down the field and get that second chance at a field goal attempt,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Anything else from you? I'm gonna probably look up some stats here and mention some stats. But you got anything
No,
else?
that was this. Like I said, this was an exciting end of the game. Um, if Southwest Kansas had scored anything in the fourth quarter, we'd be
Anything.
we'd be talking about a different set of matchups for the playoffs. But they were totally shut out. They had a big lead going in the fourth quarter, and they just totally fell apart. And that's so unusual for Southwest Kansas. They're a good team. They know how to score. They can score at a minute's notice, but nothing in that fourth quarter. That
They've had
shocked
a
me.
couple of blunders like this all year. Remember earlier when they lost to the Lightning? They had a chance to just run out the clock, and they had a couple of dumb play calls that gave the Lightning a shot to get in that game, and the Lightning just happened to nail a awesome Hail Mary at that point. But the Stormers just had a couple instances, even last week. Like, what were they doing? They just had some really awkward, weird coaching decisions, I feel like.
Hmm.
And yeah, hindsight's 2020. They make a couple plays, that's a different story. But it just felt like at the end, like certain calls were like, "Why are we doing this? Like, are you guys trying to lose the game?" It was just really odd. But the other thing I wanted to mention was they also screwed themselves essentially out of the number 2 spot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
This loss knocked them down. They lost a home playoff game because of this.
Yeah.
If they would have won, they'd have been the number 2 seed, and Nashville would be coming to their building. But instead, what it's going to be now is Southwest Kansas has now got to travel to Nashville. And we'll talk about the matchup coming up and who Salina's got to play in a second. But I want to throw out some stats. Look, Storm quarterback Jalen Morton had a decent day, 16 of 29 for 236 yards. He had 3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions during this game. And then he had 9 rushes for 57 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he had a pretty decent game, I think, all things considered. But a couple of crucial interceptions, though, in this one. And the Salina Liberty, they started off with Rakeem Cato, who got hurt in this game. And Javen Kilgo had to come back into this game as well and do what he did last week. But Cato was 18 of 24 for 202 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns and an interception. Kilgo was 10 of 21 for 119 yards and threw for 2 touchdowns. So it didn't really matter which one of these the Liberty quarterbacks were in. They both looked pretty good when they needed to game. Let's see. Receiving wise, Demarius Washington for the Storm has been good all year long. He had 9 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdown catches in this game. And for the Liberty, they had a couple receivers, almost 3 receivers, receive for over 100 yards apiece. You had Tracy Brooks, who had 10 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. Edward Smith Jr. had 9 catches for 121 yards and 3 touchdown catches. And Malik Honeycutt, one of my favorite players this year, he's been awesome. He had 8 catches for 100 yards. No touchdown catches in this one, but they used him a lot as a decoy. They mentioned that during the broadcast, where he was kind of that guy that the Storm were kind of gravitating to, and that kind of opened it up for Smith Jr. and Brooks to make a couple of big plays. And both these defenses had flashes of greatness. Salina especially. Remember, they had the safety at one point that really kept them in the game, and then that interception off the wall was awesome too. So Salina's been so much fun to watch. I felt bad, when I was messaging Steven Tice. I know he was pulling for Southwest Kansas to get the win.
Right.
But secretly, deep down, I was kind of pulling for Salina. Sorry, Steven. I was kind of pulling for it because the way they started their season, like, this is just a totally different team from where they were then and where they are now going into the playoffs. And we're going to talk about the playoff matchups in a second. But, Dad, anything else from this game before we do that?
No, Stephen, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain because I was rooting for Billings the whole way. I was not hoping that Salina would win. I was right there with you. I had my shirt all ready to put on to wear today for this, but it just didn't happen. I'm sorry.
I'm surprised Steven even tries to get a hold of me because, I've talked crap about his gunmetal gray uniforms, which have actually grown on me, Steven. It took this long. They actually have grown on me. I don't hate them. But I mean, Salina has just been a fun story for me. And you know me, I'm a sucker for story and I'm a sucker for chaos. We talk about that quite often. And this was chaos. It delivered.
You do love the chaos. You love to see you and I have always rooted for the underdog. That's why we've been Lions fans for so many years, because we went through some very lean years with the Lions. And so we know how to root for the underdogs in a lot of these games, but not this week. I was Billings all the way.
All right, let's quickly recap the standings. Even though half the teams aren't in the playoffs, but here's your final standings for the 2025 AF1 inaugural season. So the Albany Firebirds finished at 10-0. They had a plus 399 point differential this year. 400 more points than their opponents this year, Dad, in 10 games. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it is wild.
And coming in at number 2, your number 2 seed for the playoffs, the Nashville Cats at 6-4. At number 3, the Southwest Kansas Storm went 7-5 on the year. At number 4, the Salina Liberty went 6-5. The Billings Outlaws finished 6-6 this year and on a 3-game winning streak for them. So they got some stuff to build on going into next year, depending on where they end up next year. If they're in Billings still, if they're elsewhere, again, another issue for the offseason. Number 6, the Oregon Lightning, another team. Yes, they ended the season on a losing note, but there's a lot of promise there. They got some great pieces there, including a Dalton Cole that you can build around going forward. They were 5-8. They played the most games out of everybody this year, too, at 13 games because there's that unbalanced schedule.
Yep.
The Tritons went 3-7. Obviously, we talked about they started 3-0, lost 7 straight to end the year. And then the Washington Wolfpack were 2-10. They ended their season on a 6-game losing streak. So that is your final standings for the year, and that sets up our playoff matchups right now in the AF1. Still no name for the championship game as of our recording here on Monday afternoon. But we do have one official time for the playoffs. And that first game is going to be on Saturday, June 21st. The number 4 seed, Salina Liberty, traveling to Albany to take on the Firebirds. Dad, let's do it. Let's make some predictions. Who you got in this one?
Well, it would be pretty tough to vote against Albany at home in the playoffs, being 10-0. But I think Salina will give them a good game. But I do see Albany coming out with a win in this one.
Boy, I mean, I don't want to be the contrarian, but something in me does say Salina's going to give them a fight. I don't know who's going to be quarterback for them. Cato got banged up in this game this past weekend. Albany, I don't think they're going to be able to push Salina around. Salina's got grit. We saw Salina down all game long against the Storm and came back.
Never gave up.
Because all that matters is at the end of the game when that clock hits zeros, that your score is bigger than the other team's. It doesn't matter if it takes you to that last second to do it. Salina's proven they can do it time and time again. I think they're going to give Albany a run for their money. I don't know if it'll go to overtime like that last game, but I'm taking an upset, everybody. I will take Salina. It's hard to go undefeated, and you're playing a really hot Salina team.
True.
Something's got to give. We'll see. I mean, this is not a knock against Albany. They are a great team. Maybe they will end up winning this game, but just something down in my gut, and it could be wrong. It could just be gas. It could be the burrito I had for lunch. But something's telling me to go with Salina in this one. And then the second playoff game this weekend. It is going to be on Sunday. As of this recording, if something changes, it'll be on the screen by the time I get it edited and uploaded. But the game will be on Sunday. Time still kind of being figured out. But it will be at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium where they play their home games Sunday. The Storm, number 3 seed at Nashville. Dad, I know we both got cat stuff on. Who are you taking in this one?
I'm a Nashville fan now. I'm a Cats fan for the rest of the playoffs. That's who my playoff team is. So yeah, I'm picking Nashville. But again, this is going to be a good game. You've got the 4 best teams right now in the playoffs, and these both should be very, very good games. But I am taking Nashville in this one also.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another tough one. Nashville's kind of been up and down here at the end of the year. Southwest Kansas, same, where they're good, but man, they shoot themselves in the foot. And I just have a bad feeling that that's going to happen again. Something's going to happen. They're going to make a really bad call, and Nashville's just going to capitalize and take the victory there. So we're both taking Nashville, I think, at the end of the day. Not just because we're wearing the hat. I do think that Nashville, if they play like they did against the Tritons, and I think Nashville can take this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else before we call it a day?
No, this has been a fun season to watch.
Yes, it has.
I like the fact that Evergreen now was their partner. I got to see all the games I wanted. Um, Vice TV has been really good too. Some of the
And that's where
announcers,
we'll be able to watch both playoff games, by the way,
yeah,
everybody, is on Vice TV.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and the championship game is going to be on
and the
Vice.
championship.
Some of the announcers this season, maybe they shouldn't bring them back next year, but first year for everything, live and learn, and uh, let's let's have a great 2026 season.
Yeah, we'll have more videos obviously coming up. At some point, we want to talk about our top 10 games of the year. That'll probably be after the championship game because this league has had some great games this year. We could probably also talk about some stuff going forward that we think the league could do. And also, guys, we're gonna have a few interviews probably between now and after the season, talking with guys from around the AF1. The first one coming up soon will be an interview with the director of football operations of the AF1, Gary Compton himself. We will be chit-chatting with him soon, and that interview should be up in the next couple of days. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks for checking out the channel, guys, and our AF1 recaps all season long. It's been a lot of fun just, talking AF1 football with fans out there from across the league. And we appreciate you guys, respecting or not respecting our opinions. It's cool. It's been fun. So yeah, guys, be sure to come back, check out all the other football goodness we have here between arena, indoor, spring football as those seasons march forward. And we'll see you guys next time on the World of Football.